after now you know one set of the work, that is DNA isolation or extraction, and then the PCR, and then the sequencing. Now let us come to the very interesting part of molecular biology, that is molecular cloning. Um, Initially, when the molecular cloning was discovered or was initiated, we all were like, oh my god, cloning, transfection, transformation, oh my god, how do we do it? This has become a routine job now. Okay, so there are no new innovations in cloning, and we keep on changing the paradigms to newer and newer fields now. Okay, so I'm going to give you a gist of molecular cloning initially. Okay, if you have any queries, we can take it later. So the production of exact copies of a particular gene or DNA sequence using the genetic engineering techniques is called as gene cloning or molecular cloning. The term gene cloning, DNA cloning, molecular cloning, and recombinant DNA technology all are same. No change in that. Okay. So when DNA is extracted from an organism, all its genes are obtained. Okay. So in gene cloning, a particular gene only is copied, and then we form the clones of it. Example I'll give you about insulin. Okay, so when we say that insulin production, a human insulin production, you find it in the Sigma or with High Media, or many companies are actually now producing human insulin. How are they doing it? They have cloned the gene which is producing insulin into a vector. Vector is nothing but a medium through which you are actually inserting your particular gene segment. So there's a vector, there's a gene segment, you insert it in that. Now this becomes a plasmid, and this is actually transfected. The competent cells, E. coli cells, are actually transfected with this particular plasmid, and then from there they are duplicated. So it becomes double with the doubling of E. coli. So that is the whole concept. So this is how we are using the natural machinery for doubling of this particular plasmid. So now when it doubles, then we harvest all the cells and we isolate this particular gene of interest, and this particular protein is actually harvested from there. So this is the whole concept of molecular cloning in a gist. Okay, so cloning is nothing but one method used for the isolation and amplification of our gene of interest, only one particular gene of interest. See here, there are the four or five steps of gene cloning. You see here the restriction digestion of the vector. There will be a vector already available. There will be number of vectors available through different companies. These are actually genetically made. Okay, so this particular vector will have an ORF. You must have read in your molecular biology books. So then we will digest it or break it open. Okay, like this. It is like this. Now you have to cut it and break it open. Once you have break it open, you have to do the same cutting here also in the gene of interest. Then this will be reverse. It will go and fix in your restriction vector. Once it is fixed, it becomes a sealed one. Now this sealed actually is, we ligate it with ligase enzyme. Once it is ligated, we have to transform the E. coli cells with this particular plasmid or the vector. Okay, now it enters into the E. coli, and then we grow the E. coli for culturing. Okay, this is the whole process. First, we will see the first process of in the molecular cloning, the insert of the PCR. So whatever gene you need, you have to amplify it and make an amplicon. This I have already told you in the previous section, so we'll just rush through it. We will have a template cDNA of our particular gene of interest. We will be having forward primer, reverse primer, DNTPs, the buffer that is to be used, and the polymerase together with the water. So this is a general regular PCR that we will be putting with it. Okay, I have already told you that we add all the components and then we put in a PCR multicycler, and then the thermal cycler, and then the PCR product will be confirmed with electrophoresis. Okay, the second step in molecular cloning is digestion, restriction digestion. Why is it called as digestion? Because we are cutting it. And why it is called as restriction digestion? Because we are restricting the cutting to one particular site only. So this is called as restriction digestion. It can be done by a number of enzymes. There are certain enzymes which cut at specific sequences only. So suppose there is a sequence of gene, and it reads ACTGAC. Okay, now there is an enzyme which cuts only at TAC. So it sees the TAC here in the last portion, it will cut it there. So like this, there will be different enzymes. There is BAM-H1, then there are EcoR1. There are many enzymes which are actually cutting that. Now, the most important aspect here is to check whether these particular enzymes that are cutting are the blunt end cutters or sticky end cutters. There are two kinds of restriction enzymes. So blunt end cutters cut blank like this, but the sticky end cutters cut at a little ahead of the end point. Okay, so then there will be a hanging loop there in both the sides. So for the molecular cloning, we need the enzymes which cut at the sticky ends. You see here there is a vector, and this is our interest of insert of interest, and then there is this vector. Okay, then the restriction enzymes will cut and digest the vectors, and you see here, oh sorry, you see here these are the sticky ends. It doesn't want to come. Okay, so these are the sticky ends. You see here the hanging loops, and now this green one will go and fit here, this blue one will go and fit here. So these are inverted ones. Okay, so how we are doing it? We are adding 10x restriction buffer. This buffer is used for the activity of the restriction enzyme that we are adding in our for our restriction digestion. Okay, every enzyme has different requirements to work on, because all the enzymes are protein in nature. So when you are adding this restriction buffer to your enzyme and you add 100x of BSA to it, BSA is nothing but bovine serum albumin, because it gives a physiological condition to the enzyme to work. Now you add the enzyme. Enzymes are generally counted in units. So you take 20 units of the enzyme 1, add it to the tube. Now you take restriction enzyme 2. Why we are taking 2? Because we have one we have to use for insert and the other we have to use for the vector. So we have to use 2 of the enzymes. Okay. Spin them down because you want a proper mixing. And now you keep it at 37 degrees centigrade for 2 hours for the enzyme to work and cut at the required site. Okay, now the second thing for this is, the third thing for molecular cloning is ligation. So ligation is nothing but you are actually, when you have digested both the things, now you are going to join both of these things together. Okay, just like a Fevicol. So when you have this insert and the vector, and when you have cut it with the restriction enzyme 1 and 2, you have generated the sticky ends there, and now you will be ligating it with the ligase enzyme. Okay, and it becomes a vector. We take ligation buffer, the vector DNA, insert DNA, and the T4 ligase. You remember I asked you a question about why do we call it as a tag polymerase? Because it is a polymerase enzyme isolated from tag. Tag is nothing but a microorganism. The same way, this ligase is an enzyme that is actually isolated from T4 phage. Okay, bacteriophage. So this is called as T4 ligase. So you can see in almost all the reactions, you add an enzyme and then you add a buffer and then you add your sample. Okay, and then your reaction will be almost complete. So the key ingredients will be the same. Very simple reaction. You just take the ligation buffer, the only thing is to be precise with the quantities here, because a little variation in the quantities may interfere with your results. Okay, so you take the vector DNA. We rather call it as vector plasmid actually. And then we take insert DNA. It will be a good practice if you keep your ice box separated into two. So what I used to do is I keep my things in the lower half, and whenever I add it, I keep it in the upper half so that I know what I have added and what I have not added. Always keep your things also with you so that you can keep a check or tick whenever you are adding your substances. Initially, for the beginners, it will be a good idea. Then you add the DNA ligase. Again, same, spin it down, mix it properly. Once it is mixed, now what should be the next step? You have to keep it for ligation, 25 degrees for 2 hours. Okay, for it to ligase and for it to ligate and for the ligase enzyme to actually work properly. Now the fourth part, now you have got your plasmid ready with you. Now you got to transform the E. coli cells with this particular plasmid. Okay, you had your insert, restriction digestion, you did sticky ends generation, then you did ligation with ligase, you had an insert plasmid form. Now you put this plasmid into the competent cell of E. coli. Okay, there will be multiple cells. When they multiply, this plasmid will also multiply together with them. So you see, place the ligation product into the competent cells. Then you will be collecting the bacterial cells, and then you will be putting your insert ligation product into that cells. Flick the tubes to mix the contents and immediately place on ice for 30 minutes. Incubate at 42 degrees at water bath at least for 1.5 hours to give it a heat shock. If you give it a heat shock, then only the ligated product will enter the competent cells. Okay, place it back on the ice and incubate it. Now you add LB broth, urea broth. You must have heard about it in microbiology. Then incubate it at 37 degrees centigrade for 1 hour. Why? For the cells to grow. Once it is done, you centrifuge at 13,000 RPM for 2 minutes. And then you discard all the supernatant that is there and just leave little broth. Okay, and then mix it properly so that you mix all the, you resuspend all the cells. Okay, now plate the suspension on LB and ampicillin plate using a glass spreader. You know all these techniques from microbiology, so I don't think I need to elaborate on it. But why ampicillin plate is used here? Any idea about this? Ampicillin is used for selection of the clones. When the plasmid is there in that particular vector, when I told you that vectors are available, in that vector, generally people are using tetracycline or ampicillin reporter gene, okay, in that vector. So if this plasmid has come into this particular cell, then this particular cell will be having ampicillin resistance and it will grow, right? So this is how we are actually choosing the colonies. Only those bacteria will grow on this particular plate which have that ampicillin gene in them. See, spread it very nicely all over. Don't worry if you don't have this rotator, I never use that. Okay, and now incubate it for 12 to 16 hours. I generally keep it for 24 hours at 37 degrees centigrade. Okay. So now the last part comes as clone selection. I already told you that there will be ampicillin reporter gene in that particular plasmid, and only those E. coli which have been transformed will grow on this particular plate. So you see here, this is the colony of colonies that have grown on LB plate. And now we are making the PCR mixture to check whether the insert has actually, if it has come into the our competent cells, then it will definitely amplify, right? So now we are allocating the PCR mixture into 96 well plate because there will be number of colonies. So we need n number of PCR tubes. So instead of that, we are putting it in a 96 well plate. And then slowly, one by one, with the help of a tip, you just pick one colony and keep on putting it in that mixture. You see, very slowly, and while putting it back into the PCR mixture, you have to be very sure that wherever you are picking it, you are keeping it back again there, and you are not touching any other surface. Now what we will do is we take another 96 well plate and we put LB media in that 96 well plate for further experiment, because these are our clones, right? We have to again use these clones in for further generation of colonies. So we will be covering this plate with microseal film so that the contamination is not there, and incubating it for at 37 degrees centigrade for few hours. And this particular 96 well plate, where we have actually selected all our colonies, we will be putting it for the PCR reaction. And then again the same procedure. You have to do a gel, this thing, run a gel to see that whether all these have transformed or not. And whatever positive colonies are there, wherever you see the bands, you actually grow them for further experiments. So this is how you do the molecular cloning. Okay. Now you have generated your clones where you can use multiple times. So the same thing can be done for insulin production, or for any particular protein of interest that we need for research purpose. All these things are done through this particular thing. You must have been thinking about molecular cloning like something big, but you see how simple it becomes when you actually know what are the procedures to be followed and how. It is a simple procedure. The only thing is that your E. coli has to be competent cells, and I did not cover how do we make competent cells here, because that is a part of microbiology. So in case you are interested, I may forward that video to the organizers of this particular workshop. Okay. Now comes the interesting thing. I find it very interesting. It is a replica plating. What is replica plating? A replica means making a duplicate of it. This is the positive and this is a replica. So now when I touch it here, everything comes here. Have you tried something with the henna sometimes? Just put henna on one hand and then replica plate it on your another hand. So it becomes easy, right? Faster. So jokes apart, this is the handle. This has a handle and this has a small velvet or muslin cloth. Generally velvet. A sterilized felt also is used sometimes. And what happens is this handle you can hold like a stamp. You can call it as a stamp plating also. Okay, so replica plating is a technique that allows the molecular biologist to transfer samples of bacterial colonies from one nutrient agar plate to another. Using this method, you just saw in the video how tedious it was to pick one colony and then dip in LB broth and then again incubate LB broth, then take that LB broth and spread it on another plate. This is how you are generating. But in this method, what they are doing is exactly they are duplicating. So wherever first colony was there, the same place the second plate also will be there. So using this method, duplicate bacterial samples can be grown on a second agar plate in exactly the same position that they were growing on the first agar plate. The felt or velvet covered tool is pressed gently on the surface of the first agar plate containing the colonies of the bacteria, and then the cells from each of the bacterial colony stick to the felt, and then this is replica plated into the same position with the relative mark on the another agar plate. So the bacteria growing on the ampicillin plate, that is all those containing plasmids, are now replica plated onto a tetracycline plate. You understand? Many of the times we are using a double mutant. Okay, we need to know if both the selections are there or not. So as I told you initially, they can be either ampicillin or tetracycline or both. So now I have already checked that it is ampicillin resistant because it grew on the ampicillin plate. Now I need to know whether it is tetracycline resistant also or not. So the same colonies, I want to transfer it on the tetracycline plate to see the effect of tetracycline. Just check this video. You see here the ring clamp. Okay, it has an orientation mark. And then mark your plate with the orientation mark also. All the replica plates also should have an orientation mark that you can put anywhere on your plates actually, before the experiment, of course. So do everything near the Bunsen burner to avoid any sort of contamination. You see, this is a sterilized velvet piece. Take it. The same velvet piece can actually be put on a handle also for making it easier. Then you don't need the log that is being shown here. You place it upside down on the surface of the log, and you put the orientation mark at the top, just like how you do the embroidery. Tighten it very nicely. We don't want any contamination, so we want it a little lower. Then you take this plate and mark the orientation mark together with the orientation mark of the rim that we have already placed the ring there. Okay. Now gently press over it on the sides also, so that all the colonies are actually touching the velvet surface. Gently take it off without disturbing the orientation. Close it. Again, take the replica plate that you want to plate. Same position, plate it with the orientation mark together with the ring, and similarly press it gently. Now what I told you in my previous slide is the stem kind of thing, which you can take like this and put like this. Here we are doing it reverse way. Then you simply take the rim out, send it for autoclaving, turn the burner off, take off the velvet from there, and straight, don't smudge it, and then leave it in a bin for autoclaving. Okay, you can use it 2 to 3 times. In India, maybe 5 times, because we are lacking in the resources. But proper sterilization is very, very important. Okay, coming to the last topic of today, the forensic molecular biology in forensics. I told you initially only that a lot of applications of PCR itself is there. So you think about DNA fingerprinting, and you think about blood typing, or you think about n number of things in diagnostics or forensics. You will be coming up with the brilliant ideas in molecular biology. Okay, so DNA fingerprinting it's nothing but similar sequencing kind of thing, and I'm not repeating it again because it is one and the same procedures. What happened is with DNA fingerprinting, we have solved the case of high profile cases like Rajiv Gandhi murder case and Naina Sahni murder case. You must have heard about that. Naina Sahni was shot dead by her husband with 3 bullets, and then he tried to burn her up in tandoor, and those burned samples, he chopped her and then burnt it in tandoor, and those burned samples came for testing and for identification, and through DNA fingerprinting only we came to know that she was Naina Sahni. Not just in the murder cases, but in rape cases also, or murder cases also, you check the DNA samples from the sperm and the patient victim, and then you match them and check whether it matches with the culprit or not. So one more very high profile case was actually solved with the help of this, that he actually killed 2 girls after rape in a foreign country, and then the blood samples of all the local males were matched, and he actually escaped by giving his friend's blood in his name, but later he was arrested and found guilty. So I'm very fortunate that I worked with Dr. Lalji Singh. He is known as the father of DNA fingerprinting in India. And if you remember my sequencing data that I showed you, the 2009 paper, initially it was with Dr. Lalji Singh. I'm very fortunate to have worked with him. We also do the paternity tests to DNA fingerprinting. to match the DNA of father and mother, because DNA, as you know, there are two strands, and one strand passes into the kid from the mother, and the other strand passes from the father. So this is how you match the sequences in the father's DNA as well as in mother's DNA. You do blood typing. Whatever blood is found in the at the site of what is a crime, you just collect that and then extract the DNA from those blood cells, and then you match it with that of the culprit or the victim, and you solve the cases. Of course, diagnostics, molecular diagnostics is the major thing that is coming up these days, and CCMB has actually started Aspire, a whole diagnostic company, Section 8 company CCMB started for this purpose. Okay, so how do you solve a crime through DNA fingerprinting? Just watch this video.
House was broken into last week. The police can identify the culprit from blood found at the scene. How can they do that? To understand this, we need to state what is meant by DNA fingerprinting and describe some uses of DNA fingerprinting. The burglar smashed a window, leaving blood on the broken glass. Samples of blood, hair or skin can be collected from a crime scene. Forensic scientists investigate the samples in a lab. First, they extract DNA from the cells. They use enzymes to cut the DNA into shorter fragments. The fragments are placed into a well in a gel. They are separated using an electric current. Different sized fragments travel different distances in the gel. The smallest fragments travel the furthest. A pattern of bands is produced. This can be compared with the patterns of DNA from possible suspects.
That is why it is called as fingerprinting. You know, the fingerprints are actually unique. The similar way enzyme cuts the DNA of different people at different places. So the same ways, these suspects can be matched with the DNA sequence of whatever is found at the crime site.
The enzymes cut different people's DNA in different places, producing a different set of fragments. The different sets of DNA fragments will produce different patterns of bands when separated on a gel. Each person has unique DNA, which will produce a unique pattern that can be used to identify them. If two patterns match, the samples are from the same person. So, the police are able to identify the man who burgled my house using his unique DNA fingerprint. They make a DNA fingerprint by taking a sample of cells from someone and separating fragments of DNA to make a pattern. If the pattern matches a sample from a crime scene, that person was there.
So this is how DNA fingerprinting actually works for crime scenes.
House was broken into last week.
And how DNA profiling is
Guardant
done in
360.
diagnostics. I'll show you a video. I just found it from one of the company's website, how they are using DNA profiling in diagnostics, a gist of it. So I'm using the video audio as well.
Guardant 360 is a new way to manage cancer by using a blood test.
So it is not only for matching your DNA, it can also detect your floating cancer cells in your blood. So this is what they are actually trying to tell you here in diagnostics.
Offering the simplest way of uncovering a wider range of treatment options than ever before. Before Guardant 360, genomic profiling of tissue biopsies was the only way of identifying such treatment options. Unfortunately, biopsies are painful, risky, and costly. It turns out that tumors release their unique genomic alterations into the blood, but at very low concentrations. Standard DNA sequencing technologies.
You must have heard about circulating tumor cells, CTLs we call them. So many of the diagnostic devices are actually trying to sequester the CTLs and then try to find out or the early diagnosis of cancer they are trying or tumor they are trying to elevate. So what this company is doing, they are actually proposing that if these circulating tumor cells can be harvested and their DNA can be amplified with the PCR, then they will be able to tell you early whether the cancer will be coming or not.
Guardant 360 is before Guardant 360 genomic profiling of the only way of identifying. Biopsies are painful, risky, and costly. It turns out that tumors release their unique genomic alterations into the blood, but at very low concentrations. Standard DNA sequencing technologies are too noisy and thus not sensitive or specific enough to see these tiny genomic alterations. Guardant 360 uses a revolutionary new technology called digital sequencing, which is 1,000 times more accurate than standard DNA sequencing methods, offering over 99.9999% specificity in its results. Using just 2 vials of blood, Guardant 360 digitally sequences billions of genomic data points, the equivalent of multiple human genomes at the single molecule level. This unlocks a view of tumor alterations that may not have been seen before and can be associated with many potential treatment options. Results come in half the time of tissue biopsy sequencing and without the cost and risk of biopsies. Guardant 360 empowers patients and their doctors with a more accurate view of their cancer, helping them make informed, real-time decisions about managing their treatment, all with a simple blood test. To find out more about Guardant 360, visit us today at guardant360.com.
So this can also be done in the molecular profiling, and I hope you all understood what I wanted to convey to you, and you all understood what are the basic techniques in molecular biology, and I hope from today you will not fear from molecular biology. Thank you.